As you probably know by now because you're really smart, I've been going over every single item in Smash Ultimate lately, talking about things ranging from basic functions, cool tips, or niche trivia, all in an effort to broaden the understanding of this aspect of the game that many people gloss over, be it casual players who just don't look too deeply into it, or competitive players who just ignore it outright. Today's video starts us off at the Boomerang, and we'll be ending with the Rocket Belt. As you can tell, we're getting pretty close to the end here, so let's just start it off. The Boomerang's main gimmick comes less from the fact that it's a boomerang, like wow how original, but rather that it gets stronger the more times you throw it. Let's consider its base catch combo count to start at 1, where its initial damage is at 2% without the 1v1 multiplier. Then once you catch it, the damage goes up by another 2%, and this keeps going up and up the more times you recatch it until you reach a combo count of 7, dealing 14%. This is the max damage it can do, and the item indicates you're at this point by having a light gold glow when thrown. The damage it deals when returning is always half the total amount, and smash throwing it won't actually make it deal more damage, instead just making it go farther. This catch combo gets reset pretty easily, either if it hits the ground or gets caught by an opponent. It also really doesn't like the drop input in general, so even if you've fully powered up your boomerang, dropping it will instantly remove the boost, leaving it at its base power. Well, I mean, I guess it's technically stronger than the base throw damage, but still. Yes, even if you instantly recatch it, the combo will be reset, so you probably want to avoid doing that altogether. Also, in order for the catch combo to actually go up any, the boomerang does need to travel a minimum distance, as if it gets sent back to you super quickly, it won't change the power. A fun bit of trivia with the item is how, when holding it, a few characters' animations just break. Normally, when, say, Cloud crouches, he'll have this basic bobbing animation for it. But when holding specifically the boomerang, he'll just stay completely still. This is especially obvious when you catch it while you're in the crouch animation, as you just stop moving. Or rather than stop moving, you just get put to the first frame of the animation and just stay stuck there. This is how it works for Sora as well, though his hair and accessories will still move in the wind. And weirdly enough, it also happens for Mythra. Yes, Mythra, but not Pyra. As with her, we can just see how the boomerang is supposed to interact with crouches. It's kind of weird that Mythra is an exception to this, but I guess at this point we should just be used to weird niche cheese with the game, so it's whatever. The Beetle will grab an opponent and carry them to the top blast zone, despite this being the base level Beetle, which in Skyward Sword is not able to grab things until it gets upgraded, but okay, sure. By the way, this item will force a screen KO. Unfortunately, this animation actually can't happen in training mode at all, so you won't be seeing it for my testing here. Anyways, you can mash out of the item pretty easily at lower percents, but towards the mid% range it becomes basically impossible. Though it's worth noting how the rise to the top works. See, the exact speed in which the Beetle rises depends on the character's weight. The lighter they are, the faster they go up, and vice versa. Specifically, its upwards acceleration goes up every single frame by units determined through this expression, so obviously the higher the weight, the lower the acceleration. So when we then include something like the metal box, the Beetle starts struggling really hard to bring them up. This inherently gives an advantage to heavier characters, as the longer it takes for someone to be sent to the mesosphere, the more time they have to mash out. Though I guess in that sense it's just mimicking how normal knockback scaling works. Now if you were wondering, if it takes the Beetle too long to reach the top blast zone, approximately 8 seconds of trying, then it'll just give up and die. Plus, if the Beetle gets stuck on a ceiling, after 1.5 seconds of registering that it's stuck, it'll once again perish. Plus, the Beetle's direction and ownership can be reversed by simply attacking it. So if you keep ping-ponging it back and forth, eventually it'll, die. It really likes to die. The cause of death is either taking too much damage from your attacks, or if brought to an extremely long stage, it does eventually give up after traveling a lot of distance total. So it's pretty neat. The boss Galaga will abduct an opponent and slowly bring them to space. This will guarantee a star KO, which luckily can appear in training mode. Just like the Beetle, you can mash out of it, which is even more effective at lower percents. Strangely enough though, while the Beetle wouldn't automatically let you out as long as you didn't make any inputs, with boss Galaga, you will be released after a certain period of time even at low percents. Anyways, you can still say that this is an improvement over the Beetle, as it actually ignores the factor of weight entirely, going up at around the same speed for everyone. And while you also technically don't have to aim it, given its homing property, a balancing factor is how its startup makes it not only really easy to dodge, but also destroy. And fun fact, attacking it while the beam is already out will shift its position a little bit, which can be kinda janky. Anyways, boss Galaga has 24 HP. Once it reaches 12, it'll turn blue like this. But as far as anyone can tell, this change is just cosmetic. And once it reaches 0, it'll just explode and die horribly. If it tries to abduct someone while clipping into some terrain, the beam will just not work. Though with the right positioning, we can see what happens when this item gets stuck. And as it turns out, unlike the Beetle, it doesn't have a self-destruct failsafe in place and will just keep trying until the opponent naturally breaks out. This is likely a reason why characters will automatically escape without any inputs, but at 999%, when left like this without mashing, it'll take them almost 2 entire minutes before they eventually escape, which is kind of ludicrous. It at least makes for a nice background, I guess. The black hole is a big ball that really sucks you up. Its radius is fairly large, and the speed of its suckage is actually faster than most things you'll encounter in the base game, which I'm going to go into greater detail about because I feel like this is an item that often gets really extra overlooked by people, including myself. From what I gather, the suction speed is at 2.5 arbitrary units, thanks to Canvas K for giving me the data. So to give an example, the character with the highest base fall speed is Fox, which is 2.1. So even he won't be escaping normally. However, his fast fall speed is at a brisk 3.36 units, which makes him outspeed the suction quite easily. In fact, almost half of the cast has a fast fall speed that's greater than 2.5, meaning they'll be able to escape this to varying degrees. This is really nice given that having a slower fast fall speed means basically nothing you can do will stop you from being put into tumble like this while in the air. Though once you introduce something like the metal box, the black hole just can't keep you contained. At least, again, when it's in the air. If you have access to burst movement options, those work as well, so you definitely have room to be creative. And you don't have to worry about being stuck in freefall if you mess that up, since the black hole actually resets that state too. Now you might think that the grounded version of this item is a lot easier to escape since you can run instead of just fast falling, but the funny thing is that basically all run speeds are still not enough to fully escape the black hole. Like you can make some leeway kinda, but the only character who can just straight up run out is Sonic. Or, you know, anyone who can get a good enough speed boost. So, given that you don't have the ability to just fall out, this grounded version can be a bit more effective, even if it allows the opponent to use grounded attacks. Anyways, if you're not super familiar with the item, you might be wondering what the point even is. Like sure, you're stuck in one spot, which kinda sucks, but you can still wriggle and writhe like a pathetic worm all you want. And worst yet, any nearby items also get sucked into this spot. Wouldn't it kinda suck? If the opponent gets access to all these items with ease? Well, in my opinion, the single most important facet of the black hole is how it also works like a reflector. Any projectile shot or thrown while in it or near its suction range will be slurped up. And the moment they get sucked, they're technically owned by the user of the black hole. So if you're caught in it and you start spitting out projectiles, they're probably just gonna spin back around and hit you instead. Of course, this is also true for any items you get in there, which can really backfire in some cases. Though I found that most of the time, thrown items just sorta do nothing instead, which is kind of odd. Also yes, the black hole in item form has a hitbox that deals very little damage or knockback, but it can KO at, you know, unreasonably high percents. Also, quick bit of trivia, when the stage is about to morph, the black hole will actually just completely disappear. And with so much leniency that they go away like 6 whole seconds before the morph even begins. I guess they foresaw some kind of jank with that interaction, which is probably fair. Given how much earlier these items disappear before the stage morph though, you can kind of use that as a sign of when the stage is gonna change if you lost track otherwise. Which is the kind of really niche tech that sounds like it'd make you look really smart, but probably doesn't actually mean anything. Oh well. The Franklin badge has the very simple use of turning anyone who wears it into a walking reflector. Outside of pointing out how goofy some of the badge placements are on some characters, I might as well take this as an opportunity to talk about how reflectors work in general, which might get a bit long-winded, but I don't really see people talk about the nitty-gritty of this mechanic so much, so let's go for it. Reflectors don't all work the same, as each have their own stats for certain things, and I'll be referencing the wiki for the data I'm going over here, which I'll be leaving a link to in the description. So to start off, the amount of additional damage a reflector will do varies from source to source. The Franklin badge has a damage multiplier of 1.3, meaning all incoming sources have their power go up by that much when reflected. In Smash Ultimate, the lowest multiplier you'll see is 1, meaning the damage won't change. And the highest can go up to 2.4 with Kazuya's left splits kick, because, you know, he costs money to play. There's also a separate speed multiplier, which changes how fast that projectile will travel, though this only seems to happen for certain types of reflectable objects, as most of the ones I tested kept their same speed. Once again, the Franklin badge is at a 1.3 times multiplier, with one of the higher numbers being the home run bat's insane 2.5 times increase. It's a shame how many projectiles didn't get the speed boost because it is terrifying how fast some of the things can become with this. The lifespan multiplier will affect how long the reflected projectile will last. When a projectile gets reflected, it basically has its usual duration reset. So the Rage Blaster just barely doesn't make it to the character here, yet when it gets reflected, it travels that same distance, just in reverse. This is with a reflector whose lifespan multiplier is 1, which is why the distance is about the same. For the Franklin badge, it's at 0.5, meaning its new distance is basically halved. Though for items where the speed multiplier actually does work, its distance can sometimes be more balanced out from that speed increase, whereas with a number higher than 1, like Mewtwo's Confusion at 1.25, the projectile will actually last a bit longer once reflected. This doesn't seem to happen for all reflects, or rather, some projectiles might have hard-coded lifespans that stop them from being kept out for too long, but even that varies a lot from projectile to projectile. And lastly is the max damage reflectable number. This is what determines when a reflector breaks, with most sources, including the Franklin badge, breaking at 50%. Meaning if an incoming attack will deal less than 50%, it can be reflected properly, and if it'll deal more than that, then it just won't be reflected. If something has a higher number, like the home run bat's 80%, then that means when an incoming attack would have normally broken, these sources won't, which can result in much deadlier punishes. So you might think that projectiles that are really weak and take a long time to get to 50% would just keep reflecting until then, but it seems there's a limit on top of this damage number. Specifically, it's 6 reflects, as on the 7th one the projectile will just go away entirely. This is the funniest to see with something that doesn't deal damage, like the Beetle, as once it reaches the 7th reflection it'll just die. Poor dude. There's a lot of other things I could touch up on when regarding this mechanic as a whole. It's genuinely quite complicated with a lot of things that we could cover, but I figure I'll just leave it at those very basic of basics, just so everyone has a better idea of how this all works, as I figure this mechanic will come up quite a bit when items are turned on. The back shield is one of many items that actually originate from Kid Icarus Uprising, which you might not have known about beforehand, and its main gimmick is, of course, protecting your back. Well, at least it tries to. It can be pretty useful in certain scenarios, especially helping out with projectiles, but for most of the cast, the shield is actually notably shorter than the character themselves, meaning they can still get hit by moves. Plus, if you're shielding, the back shield won't protect that, meaning you can still lose durability, or just have it broken entirely. And for something like the home run bat, it'll still do the zoom in animation when it hits the shield, but I guess if I hit the tip of the bat, it doesn't do that anymore? Maybe it's because you're so far away that you wouldn't have hit the normal player, so the detection doesn't register that you would have landed it anyways. I don't know. The back shield sticks around for 30 total seconds when equipped, which is a pretty good amount of time. Though its duration does get lower depending on how much damage it takes, going down to 28 seconds after eating a home run bat swing. And with 2 home run bat swings, it goes down to 26 seconds, and with 5 swings down to 20 seconds. So I guess we can average out around 2 seconds of duration removed per home run bat swing. Though oddly enough, when I enabled the 1v1 multiplier here and did 5 swings, the timer went down even more than before, even though this would all technically make the home run bat deal less damage. So that's kinda weird. And yeah, if the primary Ice Climber wears the back shield, it's really not gonna protect the secondary one, which is kinda dumb. The screw attack lets you cosplay as Metroid in real life. The attack itself is pretty solid for combos, or even just straight up lethal, if you really play your cards right at least. And you can cancel the multi-hit with any other attack that you want at any time. It covers both your initial jump and your double jump. Though for characters with more jumps than that, it'll stop working after the first 2. And yes, even if I equip an extra jump spirit, the screw attack won't get an additional use. The limit seems to be specific to 1 grounded jump and 1 mid-air jump. For something like Greninja's down air, which normally bounces him back up, the screw attack will actually trigger for this bounce instead. But if you already burned your double jump screw attack, then it won't trigger for the bounce. So it's really keeping that total limit in mind. And no, surprisingly this didn't happen for Simon or Richter's down air bounce. Anyway, something you might notice with this item is that it boosts your jump height by quite a bit. Meaning if you try to do a short hop aerial, you'll still just send yourself flying. This doesn't necessarily mean that you can't short hop, because you can, it's just not what you'd call short is all. Though if you want to get really sweaty with this, the screw attack triggers the moment you're airborne from your jump, being the 4th frame for almost everyone. Meaning this is a frame 4 out of shield option that anyone can use. Given how good some of the combos from this can be, that makes it an item with some pretty scary potential. And while you can SDI the multi-hit, I didn't find that it was enough to actually get out of the attack. Rather just sort of reposition where you ended up, which could make the combos a bit harder to execute, but it's still fine. Now, I said almost everyone has access to the tech, as in Smash Ultimate, everyone has the same universal 3 frames of jump squat animation, except for Kazuya, who has 7 frames. meaning for him and him alone, the screw attack comes out on frame 8. Yeah, I'm gonna need my $5.99 back now, Nintendo, thanks. The Super Leaf lets you briefly hover in the air by holding down the jump button, and while in the air you can keep using attacks while floating. It's essentially just Peach and Daisy's float mechanic, meaning yeah, any character can also make use of float cancel tech. While I'm still not very good at that, the idea is this. Normally the float only happens after your jump has reached its peak. However, by holding down on the control stick, all of that upwards momentum gets replaced with the float, looking something like this. You can do this straight from the ground by holding down and the jump button, which gets you a really short float, and by letting go of the jump button, you stop floating. So if you let go just barely after you've started, you can essentially spam baby jumps like this over and over, which can open up some insane combos. It very well might be the most technically advanced item in the game because of how it mimics this mechanic, unless you're Olimar. As shown in this tweet by Wooboy that Enharmonic brought to my attention while I was making this video, for reasons that you can read in the tweet, basically, Olimar cancels his float when he uses an aerial or any other attack, making it notably weaker for him alone. So, sucks to suck, I guess. Also, the item will give the user a pair of fluffy ears and a big old tail. However, if the character is already, like, you know, an animal, they'll actually still get the tail, doubling up in some cases. But they won't get a pair of ears. Except for Pichu, I guess. I mean, they get ears just fine, even though Pikachu doesn't, so I'm not really sure what that's all about. The Rocket Belt is an item that apparently originates from Pilot Wings, and it lets you do a little bit of casual flying. The way it works is that it has an energy value of 200, and once that value reaches 0, you'll stop gaining height from it. And it only recharges when you're on the ground, at a rate of 1 energy per frame. The rate at which the energy goes down while flying, however, has a lot of smaller variables, but for the most part it goes down by 1 energy per frame as it's accelerating, and once it reaches top speed it goes down at 1.25 energy per frame. I'll leave up this comment by Canvas K if you want to read a bit more about how the specifics work. It's pretty interesting, and I really do appreciate getting this data. But for the sake of most people, just know that it'll take a little under 3 seconds of constant flying to run out of energy, and a little over 3 seconds of being grounded to fill that energy back up. On top of this energy limit, the item has a 25-second timer that determines how long it stays equipped. And once this timer is up, it'll fly off your back and into the air. Most of the time it'll just go off screen, but if not, it'll actually explode on its own eventually. And funny enough, the Rocket Belt serves as an attack in this state too, triggering the explosion on contact and actually has some pretty decent KO power. And no, surprisingly, it can't be reflected, nor can it be pocketed or absorbed. Now isn't all that useful to know? And the last fun fact is how you can equip the Super Leaf and the Rocket Belt at the same time, but the Rocket Belt will always take priority. Even when you run out of energy, the Super Leaf cannot give you any floating. Okay, well I said that was the last fun fact, but I would be remiss if I neglected to bring up a certain part of this item called hit stun canceling. In Smash 4 and earlier versions of Smash Ultimate, when a character got hit to where they dropped the Rocket Belt, this would actually remove all of their hit stun during the knockback, which allowed you to do an insane amount of ludicrous stuff like this, which made the item a strong contender for one of the funniest in the game. But unfortunately at some point early on they patched this out, and now the item is just a normal Rocket Belt. It's really unfortunate. Please leave your respects below to the fallen hit stun cancelling device. Anyways, that'll end today's awesomely brilliant video. As you can tell, we're getting very close to being done with this whole topic. The next video is going to be the last one in this mini-series, making 8 episodes total. If you have any thoughts on things I didn't go over for past items, or ideas for the last remaining bunch, be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you've been enjoying the content, either here in the full-length videos or in the short-form ones, feel free to subscribe so I can get dopamine from seeing the number go up. And with that, I'd like to thank my patrons, Ctrl-Alt-Karma, Burbo, Raighne, Still700, and everyone else for their incredible support. Stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.